Joining me now is Alex Newman. Alex and I both have been writing and speaking about education for years, as probably most of you know by now. I talk about it enough. My second book in 1993 was called Cradle to College and Educational Abduction. My third book was called 1995, called Reclaiming a Nation at Risk, all about the federalization of education, school to work, really which is the 10th plank of the Communist Manifesto, merging education with industrial production and the government, state, and federal picking what career path your child goes on, or whether your child goes to college or becomes a ditch digger, because you might end up being an Alex Newman. We can't have you become a journalist. So let's find out what Alex's worldview is early on and make sure he becomes a ditch digger. Because that's actually what Aldous Huxley wrote in his book, Brave New World. Square pegs don't fit in round holes and tend to have discontent about the system and infect others with that discontent. This is all in my book in 93 and 95, which, again, folks, is more relevant than when I wrote them. And you don't have to buy them. They're all in the vault at worldviewtube.com/vault. Oh, that URL. There you go, boys. They're on it tonight. worldviewtube.com/vault. They're all there now. All of them. For the first time in years. And now we have the president of the American Federation of Teachers yesterday saying that we need to keep the Department of Education around because we have to do job tracking. We need to put kids onto a job track. I'm like, wait a minute, that's school to work. That's what I was fighting in the early 90s, testifying before the state Senate in Kansas, saying don't do this. Bill Clinton was pushing it really hard, merging the Department of Education with the Department of Labor, at least policy-wise. Again, go read the 10th plank of the Communist Manifesto, merging education with industrial production. It's a planned economy. Yeah. You get that and you would never have a guy like Alex Newman because he'd be digging ditches. Joining me now is Alex Newman. Alex, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
It's an honor to be here. Thank you for having me, Brannon.
You want to comment on what I just said?
You're absolutely right. I wish people would have seen this many decades ago when people like you and Phyllis Schlafly and other great Americans were sounding the alarm. Now we're here. Our kids are dumber than a box of rocks. We've just got the latest results from the National Assessment of Educational Progress. We have never had a population of young people that was this illiterate, that was this innumerate. Never in the history of our country, probably in the history of Western civilization. We have not had a population this dumb. The vast majority of them have been indoctrinated into a worldview that rejects God, rejects the Word of God, rejects the principles in our Constitution. So we are in a major crisis. And I know a lot of people are really excited about everything is Trump doing and about what Trump is doing. But the long-term battle starts in the hearts and minds of our children. The other side has understood that for generations. Our side is just now coming to understand this. So we've got a lot of work to do, and this is the most important battle that we are facing. That's why you focus so much on this throughout your career and even early on in your career. That's why I have focused so much on this. Two of my books, more than any other subject, deal with education. And this is the heart of the issue. We've got Trump for 4 more years, maybe another conservative president. But if they get our young people, which they have them right now, all of this is going to be swept away.
Yeah, amen. Today on my radio show, I did my radio show basically on this. The slogan I see on social media over and over and makes me want to vomit. We're so back. America is so back. And I said on radio today, when I see that, I think that's either a person of goodwill, good intentions, that's either ignorant, or they're stupid, because they were saying this before Donald Trump even got inaugurated. We're so back. America's so back. I'm like, are you stupid? Everything he has done up to this point can be turned around with the stroke of a pen by the next president with executive orders. We're far from back. We have hospitals still pushing the COVID shot. We have medical murder going on across this country. Just interviewed Scott Scarra the other night about what they did to his Down syndrome daughter. We have active euthanasia like crazy in this country. We have state rights being thwarted every time we turn around. We have Idaho. I'm going to talk with Matt Staver about it. Idaho saying if you're a Christian, you can't be a commander in the National Guard. We are so far from being back. And I think that's kind of like QAnon is conditioning people to sit back and do nothing. While the left, they're already back in the streets, right?
Brannon, I'm so glad you're pointing that out. And I know that's not a message anybody wants to hear. And I know you're going to get hate mail and, oh, you're pooping on our parade. And, oh, you know, that we should all be celebrating. It's important to acknowledge we've had some minor victories here. But the long-term trend is not going to change unless we deal with these issues. And we have to be frank We have to be realistic about it. You're exactly right. The vast majority of the wins that we've had over the first 3 weeks here can and will be reversed the next time there's a deep state minion in the White House if we're not careful here. And looking at the education front, a lot of people are celebrating what has already happened on education. I hate to throw more cold water on the party, but I think we need a realistic, sober assessment here of what is happening. First of all, the people who are coming in, some of them are very good. I know some of the people who are working on the transition team. They're great Americans. They love God. They love their country, and they truly want what's best. So I'm thankful for them. But there are also some very, very grave dangers. In fact, the headline article on my or just today, Brannon, was about the pick for Deputy Secretary of Education. You probably are familiar with her from Tennessee. Her name is Penny Schwinn. And in addition to all the conflicts of interest and the DEI and the wokeness and the 38% literacy, which is supposed to be some kind of great accomplishment, she also has been involved in, and I think this tells you everything you need to know about her. She proposed in Tennessee a mandatory monthly government well-being check on every child in the state, not just the victims of the government brainwash camps, but homeschoolers, private schools. The government bureaucrats were supposed to ask these children about their dentistry, their mental health, their hygienic practices, their vaccines, their stress levels, all of this stuff. And in the press release, Penny Schwinn put out that we need all the stakeholders to rally around this because we need to protect our children. I mean, this is the kind of language that we hear from Adolf Hitler, from Joseph Stalin, from Chairman Mao, from Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden. This is not the language of a conservative, make America great again, America first conservative. This is an atrocity. So we've got some really negative influences here. And then you've got, Brannon, and this opens up a whole other can of worms that I hope we can address. Then you've got some conservative influencers saying, well, at least she's in favor of school choice. So I went and I looked at, what has she said about school choice? So less than 2 years ago, she gave an interview. And in this interview, she confirmed everything that we have been saying for so many years. She said, oh, yeah, school choice is great. We're going to give public money to private schools. And all that has to happen is we're going to have high quality standards, robust reporting, intense testing, outcome measurements. In other words, we're going to turn your private schools and your homeschool programs into a replica of the failing government school that people are trying to flee from 100%. By giving them government money. So this is a huge threat. We must look at this soberly. We must look at the long term here. And on the education front, some good things have happened, but we have a long, long way to go.
Yeah, and what you probably don't know is I reported on this and quoted you in your report on her tonight in the Worldview report. So, I mean, to think again that she comes from Tennessee and is doing this, absolutely a real problem, no doubt about it. What you laid out, I mentioned this on Worldview report tonight, sounds, and I'm looking for something, that's why I'm looking off to the side, because I'm looking to show you guys something. Here it is. This is chapter 4 of my 1993 book, Cradle to College and Educational Abduction, 1993. Robbing the Cradle, Parents as Teachers, okay? This is a program that started in Missouri, but they were going to fund it nationally, okay? And the goal was monitoring of children. And you mentioned Phyllis Schlafly. There she is. I'm quoting her. And Phyllis had me on her show quite a bit, and I'd go on her show, and she and I spoke together at CPAC in the early 90s when they would let people like us speak. But this was implemented in Missouri in 1981. And they, of course, always have good reasons for it, to deal with the rising dropout and increased support of educational, so blah, blah, blah. But the Missouri legislature put it into effect. And it was called Parents as Teachers, but it was going to go nationwide. And what they did is they would do home visits to see if your child was at risk, okay? And guess what? This is what would make you at risk. Premature babies, emergency delivery or birth trauma, a child's slow growth, poor appetite or frequent illness, delayed development. Who measures that? Inability of parents to cope with inappropriate child behavior, including spanking as an exclusive form of discipline and inconsistency. A parent who is ill, heavy, tired, depressed, handicapped, injured, or appears to be of low level intelligence. Who decides that? Overindulgence, undue spoiling on part of parents, stress on the family. Oh yeah, nobody's got stress. Such as a parent that travels frequently, moving to a new home, a death in the family, divorce or separation, birth of a sibling, 3 children under the age of 3, prolonged illness, loss of a job, low-level income. Who defines that? Allergies, heavy cigarette smoking in the house, family history of hearing loss, lack of stimulation, overstimulation, Predominantly inappropriate or very few toys. Now, as I wrote him this book in 93, the whole goal was to get everybody labeled at risk so you could have the government nanny states. As this gal in Tennessee here apparently wanted everybody to get a regular visit from the government. And by the way, they wanted to do it without the parents around, I reported you as saying in your report. And
that's what their documents show, Brandon. I have their documents. I dug them out when she first proposed this, and they specifically say in there, try to get the child away from the parent, try to do this in as private a setting as possible. So they weren't even hiding this. They wanted to talk to these children as far from their parents as they possibly could.
And as I pointed out in my book in 93 and on my Worldview report tonight, it generally comes down to money. Let's get all the at-risk kids we can in a local school district. Then we turn back to the state and we say, we got all these at-risk kids, which means everybody's at risk based on the criteria I just gave you, because they want as many kids at risk so they can get more money. So they go back to the state and they say, hey, Nashville, we got all these at-risk kids. Give us more money in our school district, right? And then the state turns around and says to the federal government, oh my, look at all these at-risk kids we have in our state. Give us more federal money. It's a game. And then, of course, we already know from the Biden regime that conservatives, patriots, constitutionalists are potential domestic terrorists, right? We have a case that we're going to deal with Matt Staver of a child in Maine, and the parents were never married. And this happened about 12 years ago. And I guess the mother became a Christian and started taking the daughter to Calvary Chapel Church in Maine. The judge is like, no, and refers to God in the small g in his hearings, in his paperwork. 11 pages apparently he spent trashing on this church. And I saw it, and I thought, I got to get Matt Staver on about this. So these are the kind of people we're talking about. If they make it into your home, good luck. And then you have to worry about your child ending up in the foster care system. Oh, wait a minute. They end up in the foster care system. We see the abuse, the sexual abuse and sex trafficking of children. Oh, wait a minute. Let's call up State Senator Schaefer and ask Linda Schaefer about that. Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. I can't call up my friend Linda Schaefer, who I interviewed many times, who spoke at Worldview Weekends in Atlanta, Georgia, because she's dead. Because interestingly enough, Nancy Schaefer, who you'll find out there on video speaking with Phyllis Schlafly, was apparently shot and killed by her husband, who then shot himself. Well, that's really weird, because there was a lot of things in there that didn't line up right. And my friend, who I didn't know at the time, I know now, Garland Favorito, it's like, something doesn't smell right here. And by the way, I went to lunch with Nancy and her husband in Atlanta after she spoke at one of my Worldview weekends. I don't buy it. And what was she doing back in the early 90s? Talking about Atlanta, Georgia, and foster care as sex trafficking. So yeah, that's right. Let's label kids at risk. Eventually, we can get the kids out of the home and put them in the foster care system and sex traffic them. Am I talking out of craziness here or not?
You're exactly correct, Brannon. And Nancy Schaefer was 100%, along with her husband, they were murdered because of what they were exposing. They were exposing the kidnapping of children from good homes, from good families, being trafficked as sex slaves into the child protection system. And unfortunately, as Nancy Schaefer herself warned, that is not a problem that is unique to Georgia. And I mean, it just came out in Georgia again. They gave the kids to those two homosexuals who were making horrific child porn with them. And this became a big scandal, or it should have 100-year sentences for each of these evil monsters. But this is just the tip of the iceberg. As Nancy Schaefer pointed out, this is a nationwide scandal. And you mentioned the incentives, too. They have created a system now where there are incentives all around to continue this and to expand this. So you get federal bonuses. The more children are kidnapped, the more children are put on drugs, so that you can send more tax money to the big pharmaceutical companies to give poison to these children. It is the most diabolical system that a person could ever imagine. And unfortunately, even if Trump did everything right, the system is so entrenched at the state level, at the local level, at the international level, at the teacher union level, at the teachers college level, that there's not a whole lot he could do to dismantle it. At this point, I would say the biggest and most significant risk to children is the public school system. And the public school system actually feeds children into the corrupt CPS sex trafficking system. So we're dealing here with one of the most horrific scandals in all of human history. And I say that with no sense of exaggeration at all, staring us right in the face. And unfortunately, we're talking about, yes, a big victory because now men can't shower in my daughter's locker room anymore. The fact that we consider that to be a victory, the fact that we even need to talk about that, shows you just how far down into the abyss we have gone as a society.
Yeah. Amen and amen. Look at this. This is from my book in 1993. I mean, I can't remember everything that's in my books. So I was just scrolling through this. And this is interesting. This is this Parents as Teachers program, which you hear they even want to try to bring that back in the conservative state of Tennessee with a bureaucrat who they're trying to get into the Trump administration in the Department of Education. Katie Soffin, a researcher on parents as teachers and outcome-based education, wanted to find out if such reports were true about if parents didn't follow the advice of these home visitors. As the director of PAT Answers and a staff writer for Kansas City Christian newspaper, Ms. Soffin conducted the following interview. Quote, in November of 1991, I called the child abuse hotline to find out further details on how they handled reports and if they handled reports from parent educators. They told me they did. I asked if a parent educator were to recommend that a parent see a doctor to prescribe Ritalin and the parent saw the doctor, was given a prescription but refused to give Ritalin to their child, would that parent educator call the child abuse hotline? They replied yes. What happens with the report from there, I asked. They replied the case is given to a social worker who then contacts the parent educator and the physician. The three of them decide whether or not to deliver an ultimatum to the parent to either give their child Ritalin or the child will be removed from the home. I could not believe what they told me. Alex?
This is not surprising at all, Brandon, and it has gotten orders of magnitude worse today. If you look, even at the government's own data, you've got maybe 1 in 5, 1 in 4 children on these dangerous psychotropic drugs. The CDC's latest data on young girls is astounding. Over 1 in 3 have seriously considered suicide over the last year. 1 in 10 have tried to commit suicide over the last year. We have a mental health crisis like we have never seen before, and yet we're spending more money on mental health stuff than any society has ever spent in the history of humanity. Because what's going on is this is being engineered. And again, the system is set up in a way that there are benefits for everybody. So not the vast majority of the people in the system don't understand how the whole thing works. The pharmaceutical companies understand, hey, we're getting rich. Let's keep drugging these kids. The psychiatrists understand, hey, we're getting rich. Keep sending me the kids. The school system understands, hey, we're getting more state and federal money. This is fantastic. Let's diagnose some more of these kids. So all around, there are incentives in place to not just perpetuate this, but to expand it. So the question we need to be asking ourselves is who put these incentives in place and why? It's not just big pharma. It's not just the quack psychiatrists. It's not just the perverts at the CPS. There is a power behind the scenes that wants this to happen. Our children are being destroyed. They're being turned into revolutionaries. They're being dumbed down. They're being sexualized. And they're ultimately being turned into weapons aimed at destroying the country that our forefathers fought and died for, aimed at overturning national sovereignty, individual liberty, free market economy, and big picture, crushing Christianity, not just in the United States, but around the world in preparation for this totalitarian one new world order. The evidence for this is absolutely overwhelming. This isn't something that is an opinion or an inference based on what we know. We've got smoking gun documents. And I'll take it a step further, Brandon, because I know your audience is very, very well educated. We're dealing here with doctrines of demons in the most literal sense. And I know you know that because you've been writing about this for so many years. Your average American, when they hear that, they think, oh, what silly hyperbole. These are literally doctrines of demons. The people who are building this system, the people who have been building this system over a period of many decades, are all on record. To this day, Lyndon Lantieri, the leading luminary of social emotional learning, which is now in almost every school in this country, admits, I've got her on video admitting that she is consulting with dead people, but they said, but they're not really dead because I talked to them, so let's just call them interdimensional. We're dealing here with what the Bible very clearly refers to as demons. This is necromancy, this is sorcery, this is witchcraft, this is an abomination, as the Bible puts it, and yet these people will tell you this is where they're getting their ideas from.
You know, I can back that up. I can absolutely back you up on that, 100%. In fact, Marilyn Ferguson, I think it was Marilyn Ferguson. This is in one of my books. I can't remember which one. I think it was the one in 1990, but I think it's in Grave Influence. Marilyn Ferguson was interviewing people who believe in cosmic humanism, New Age. Think Shirley MacLaine, Oprah Winfrey, you know? And you know what? You know what occupation New Agers were most likely to be involved in?
Education. Yep.
By the admission of a major New Age occult writer. Not from Brannon Howse, not from Alex Newman. A major New Age cosmic humanist occultic writer said, almost all of them, I think it was in her book, Aquarian Conspiracy, almost all of them were in education.
Yep. Brandon, let me give you 3 examples really quick. One of them I have never discussed publicly before, so this is breaking. So Alice Bailey, you and I are both very familiar with her. The guy who wrote the World Core Curriculum, the guy who's called the father of global education, the Assistant Secretary General of the United Nations, Robert Mueller, admits in the foreword to the teacher's manual for the World Core Curriculum, which he says should be taught to every child in every school in every country, that he was basing his ideas on the writings of Alice Bailey.
That's right.
You and I both have exposed her many times. She was the founder of the Lucifer Publishing Company. She was channeling a variety of different demons, primarily one she called the Tibetan. She called them ascended masters. And I've got her book, Education in the New Age. It is bonkers. It is doctrines of demons and how we're going to use the education system to prepare the world for this new world order that will eventually eradicate Christianity in their crazy delusional worldview. So that's one. Now, we also talked about Linda Lantieri at Columbia University. The leading luminary behind social emotional learning will tell you on camera she is communicating with these entities. Another one, hired by George H.W. Bush, Mr. New World Order, back in the late 80s, to start creating the infrastructure for national education in the United States, Dr. Shirley McCoon. All of this is public. She wrote a book, she co-authored a book called The Light Shall Set You Free. And the whole book is about the revelations of these spiritual entities, these ascended masters, and how we're going to move into the next dimension, this new human evolution, as soon as we get rid of those pesky Christians. And last but not least, here's the one that I didn't know about until very, very recently, Brannon. So my new book, Indoctrinating Our Children to Death, actually chapter 1, and I'm really excited about this book. It's endorsed by quite a few people in the Trump administration, including Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth. But chapter 1 in this book deals with a guy called Robert Owen. Now, Robert Owen was a very prominent individual in his day, back in the early 1800s. He rejected the Bible. He was a communist long before Karl Marx came along. And I always thought of him as kind of a godless individual. Well, a teacher, who I won't name because I don't have his permission, but a teacher read my book and started doing more digging into Robert Owen. And he found a speech that he gave, and I actually have a copy of it. I don't have it right in front of me, so I can't quote from it directly. But he brags about how he is talking to dead people, and he explains, hey, I know these are who they claim they are. I know these are actually dead people because I knew them in this life, and they talk the same way. They have the same man. So he's justifying his communication with these spiritual entities that he thinks are dead people that very, very clearly are what the Bible is talking about when it forbids necromancy and speaking with demons and things. So he is the first individual that I can find in the modern era, Brannon, who seriously proposed that the government ought to educate our children. He's the guy who laid the groundwork for government school in Prussia. And he talks about this in his autobiography. He wrote these essays about how the government ought to educate children. So those essays were taken over to Prussia by the ambassador, Baron Jacobi, and he talks about this again in his autobiography. The Prussian dictator so much approved of this that he implemented that system in Prussia. Then Horace Mann, the founding father of government schools in America, imported that system from Prussia into Massachusetts, creating the first ever system in America of education of the state, by the state, for the state. It all goes back to a guy who, by his own admission, was talking to dead people. So we have 4 clear examples of top leaders in the public education movement openly acknowledging by their own, we didn't have to go into the secret smoky rooms to find this out. They admit by their own hand or by their own tongue that they are communicating with these entities. And so when I say doctrines of demons, I mean that in the most literal sense. I'm working on a talk about this, and maybe I can share some more at the Worldview Weekend Summit coming up in October. So yeah,
because he's going to be a keynote speaker along with Gordon Chang and others. If you guys go to worldviewtube.com, we have a search bar at the top of the page. Just type in Dr. Shirley McCoon. Here's how you spell her name. And you're going to see all kinds of articles pop up. Here's what she said back in 1989 at a governor's conference. What's happening in America today is a total transformation of our society into a new era. I'm not sure we have really begun to comprehend the incredible amount of organized restructuring and human resource development. And then she went on to say, what we have to do is build a future for the revolution in curriculum that is we no longer are teaching facts to children, end quote. It wasn't about teaching facts. It was about John Dewey's goal. He said it wasn't about the letter grade. John Dewey admitted it was about socializing kids and preparing them for their place in life, which means we do a worldview test on Alex. Alex doesn't end up doing what he's doing today. We put Alex over here to digging ditches because we don't want Alex being an author, speaking at conferences, and doing broadcasts. That's what these guys literally were talking about. Planned economies where Aldous Huxley said it. Square pegs don't fit in round holes, tend to have dangerous thoughts about the social system and infect others with it. We can never let them get to that spot.
Yeah. And Brandon, I've got newer documents from the U.S. Department of Education. I've got one from 2012 on encouraging grit and tenacity in children, where they talk about some of the technologies they're using for exactly what you just described. They have a picture of a device they call a facial expression monitor. And this is and it was already in use in 2012 when this report came out in federally funded education programs that exposes children to different stimuli, monitors their facial expression in response to that stimulus, and then determines what sort of reaction they have. It processes that through an algorithm. And the U.S. Department of Education report brags that they're taking all this data, running it through algorithms, and using it to make predictions. That's an exact quote about the future interests and behavior and beliefs of these children. You're exactly right. If these megalomaniacs get their way, they will identify these kids early on who come from conservative homes, Christian homes. Maybe they show them a homosexual throuple making out, and your kid goes, "Ew, what is that?" And immediately, the system will detect, this is one of those guys. Put him on the track to dig ditches or clean toilets. Do not let him be a lawyer. Do not let him be a journalist. Do not let him be a teacher. So that's what they're doing. This is central planning on a scale never before imaginable. And now when you combine that with AI and the hundreds of data points they're collecting on every single child in the system, you realize this is the most powerful tool, not just for tyranny, but for diabolical tyranny that has ever been envisioned in recorded history.
100%. 100%. And again, I'm not here to sell a book, folks, okay? Because you don't have to buy my books. You get them for free when you join the vault. I want to, again, add to what he's saying, because very few people understand what Alex and I are talking about. If you go to my book, Reclaiming a Nation at Risk, which, again, is in the vault, here it is, 1995, Computers, the Information Givers, okay? You're going to see that going back to the 1960s, they had a plan for using computers to track every child. And by the way, Dr. Pierce of Harvard said every child who enters school at the age of 5 is mentally ill because he enters school with an allegiance toward our elected officials, our founding fathers, our institutions, the preservation of this form of government that we have, patriotism, nationalism, sovereignty. All this proves that children are sick, okay? But if you keep reading through this book, you will see the Washington Star, 1970, is talking about the U.S. Commissioner of Education, James Allen, being quoted as finding out everything you can about the child and that the center will know everything there is to know about the child, his background. And then he goes on to say that they will write a prescription for the child and for his home and family as well. This has been going on since this is the 70s, but you keep reading through this article, you'll find where I'm quoting guys back in the 1960s. Here's one in 1969. This is not new. Here's one from 63 with the U.S. Office of Education, Health, Education, Welfare. Alex, I got to wrap, but I'm telling you, we're not back. We have a lot of work to do.
We do.
Closing comment?
And without God's help, there's no way we're getting out of this mess. Donald Trump, I'm very grateful for what he's doing. I'm very grateful for what a lot of his team are doing. But this is something that's going to require action by everybody out there. And it's something that's going to require divine intervention. So get on your knees, ladies and gentlemen. Pray that God would have mercy on our country. We certainly don't deserve it. Protect your children. Raise them up in the fear, the discipline, and the admonition of the Lord, and get involved because the stakes are too high. Our children are too precious. Our biblical commands are too clear for us to just go on and just cheer from the sidelines as if everything was good and well. It's not. And thank you, Brannon, for all that you do, and thank you for having me on the program.
No, thank you. Give your website, will you?
LibertySentinel.org. People can sign up for our free newsletter there, and got a lot of stuff there people can find, and also thenewamerican.com.
And your TV show, how often is it?
We're doing the Sentinel Report once a week, and then some of the other shows once or twice a week as well, and all that's available at my website, libertysentinel.org.
Okay, and I also know that Logan and the guys in the control room are supposed to be talking to your guys about getting it here at Worldview Tube. So we'll keep working on that because this is,
Can't wait.
Again, this is very, very important information people need to get.
Yeah, well, we appreciate it so much, Brannon. Thank you very much, and we'll talk to you soon.
LibertySentinel.org, right?
That's right.
LibertySentinel.org. Alex Newman checking in, folks. Very important researcher, author, talk show host. He'll also be a keynote speaker at our Fall Ozarks Worldview Weekend. That is coming up in October. All right, before we continue, I got a video to show you. My daughter just sent over a video that makes me smile. What do you think it is? Yeah, you know, it's the granddaughter, right? Apparently, my daughter has been trying to, teach her to crawl, and I guess it happened this evening. We'll take a look at this video right here. Here's my granddaughter.
She
There you
crawls.
Told you.
She did it. She crawled.
She crawls.
Told you.
Yeah, there you go. And so I said to my daughter back in a text, she sent me this while I was at the news desk. I texted her, I said back to her, I said, good luck now, 3 laughing emojis, because they're so excited about it. I just said, well, that's great. We're glad to know she has all the motor skills. Everything's working good up there. She got everything going good. But your work is going to be greatly increased. And she texted back and said, yeah, I guess I need to get one of those playpens now. I said, I think you do. And pretty soon she'll be walking and there'll be more work to follow them, right? We've been playing this week videos. We got all these DAT tapes. Remember those DAT tapes, guys? Some of the guys and the gals, you guys remember DAT tapes you put in your video player? We went VHS to DAT tapes to mini discs, right? And so we've got, how many of you got all these tapes and you're trying to figure out how to convert them? Well, Logan pulled off a bunch of them. As you know, he showed my appearance on the O'Reilly Factor in 99. That had been on a VHS tape. I hadn't seen it since 1999 till last night. Other things. But we're also pulling stuff off of DAT tapes. I think one night this week we might show them the old man water skiing because Logan was a little shocked. He actually said, I turned around to one of the guys in the control room and said, that's my dad. Can you believe he could do that at one time? And my daughter and my son are all saying, I think you should try that again. Let's do that again. And I said, I'll be 56 in April. And there are a lot of people that water ski well up into their 80s. I'm happy to water ski. I'm happy to do that. Slalom's fine. But, cutting it so sharp as I was and throwing rooster tails, I said, all that takes is one wipe out and your knee is gone. But I don't know. The other guys are like, dude, I'm doing it at 60. What are you talking about? So I guess it's a matter of what level of risk you want to take. So we'll bring you some of those as well. But my kids, it's kind of fun to show them the things I did when I was younger that they didn't remember me doing. One of the guys in control room saw video footage of me in my first lab, or my second lab, summer hunting. Van said to Logan, I didn't know your dad would ever go do that. I just didn't see him doing that kind of thing. So yeah, that's before I became a slave to this network. But we've had a blast this week watching Logan on one of the videos take his first few steps. So now we're watching my granddaughter crawl. One of the videos the other night was me trying to teach Logan how to walk on his own, which he, within a few hours, was doing. And we got it on video. So we're having a blast. One of my buddies came in the control room today, in fact, and saw all these tapes laid out. He said, what are you guys doing? And I said, they're converting these things. So a lot of this is work, speeches, and appearance on O'Reilly Factor. And so a lot of it's old stuff from my job, from our Worldview weekends. I want it archived and put into our vault, and I want to show it to my TV audience. He said, I got an old VHS tape of my wedding, and I put it in the other day to watch, and it's corrupted. It doesn't work. I said, well, that's what happens. These things break down. I said, that's one reason why we're trying to get it off the digital and then save it so we can actually watch it. So I will hope to bring you some water skiing video. Maybe we'll do that tomorrow on Friday. Some fun programming there. But the the granddaughter, she crawls. All right, there you go. All right, Swish for Life. Hey, remember, support us and your health. Swish for Life. That's the website, Swish for Life. That we made a specific, unique website for this. This is called Numi, and it contains glutathione. That's an all-natural occurring molecule in your body that starts to decrease around age 20. Swish with it for about 3 minutes, and then you can swallow or spit it out, but you're getting glutathione in your system within 90 seconds to help detox your cells. Very, very important, folks, to be detoxing your cells, right? Swish for Life. 162,000 studies on glutathione at PubMed. So this is not a joke. Some studies show it may remove mercury from your brain, helping prevent Alzheimer's, dementia, and Parkinson's. SwishForLife.com. The trifecta. You know, I take my Gatatana, I take my Numi right here, and then I take my Bella Grace. The trifecta, folks, right there. All right, take a look at this. We are doing a rally. We haven't done one in a lot of years, folks. It came off the road other than our annual conference, but we're going back out. And this is Tuesday night, April 15th. The Worldview Radio Bible Prophecy Rally. Dr. Andy Woods and myself, we're speaking. It's free. Free. Brought to you by our foundation. See all the great things we do with our foundation when you support us. Free radio, free TV, free rallies. You guys make it possible. This is free, but you got to register and get a ticket because we have to put out, have chairs put out. They charge us $2 a chair. So we don't want to put out more chairs than we need, but we also want to make sure we have enough chairs out. So please register. You can do that at worldviewtube.com/events. Worldviewtube.com/events. Get registered. Help us get out the word. Let's pack it out, folks. Let's pack it out. Logan's coming with the film crew. And if you're a member of the Vault, you're going to be able to live stream it. Another perk to belonging to the Vault. You'll be able to stream this event that night live, only if you're a Vault member. Worldviewtube.com/vault. Otherwise, please be sure to get your free ticket and spread the word. Put it out on social media. Say, hey, folks, here's a free event. Worldviewtube.com/events. All right. Let's see what else we got, Logan. Oh, yes. Worldviewtalk.com. Worldviewtalk.com. Get your free satellite phone. Just sign up for one of their very reasonable monthly plans. Get your bivvy so you can text through a satellite in case the cell towers go down. Get your solar generator. They now have a solar generator. It's free. If you sign up for one of their very reasonable service plans, you can find full details by calling them on that one. That one you're going to need to call them on. 1-866-738-3224, 1-866-738-3224, worldviewtalk.com. Solar generators. They have cell phones, by the way, that do not track you. They do not store your data. All of this at worldviewtalk.com. Worldviewtalk.com. I hope you'll check it out.